Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Depends upon when you're listening. Welcome to The Solution. Nothing changes if we change nothing. We're the New York City Prevention Resource Center. We're housed at Children's Aid, and we're funded by the Office of Addiction Services and Support, New York State OASIS. And we are so glad to be back. Good afternoon, Chevar.
Good afternoon. Or is it? Well, it's going to be afternoon eventually.
It is
uh,
somewhere.
it's somewhere it's this afternoon. Good day. Good day to all who's listening or watching. It's been a while. Hopefully we can do this more often. I'm excited also. We have some new additions to our team. Not new additions, a new addition to our team who will come a little bit later. But otherwise, how have you been in the world of prevention or the world of life, Ronnie?
Life, yes, life is about prevention of negative things happening in life. I always, no matter when we've talked about this, it just seems that when you live a positive life, you're trying to prevent negativity in your life. So there's always a type of prevention. It's just sometimes the negativities. How can I say this? It's just the risk is greater. We're looking at risk and protection factors, so we have to increase the protection. Which is what I've been doing a lot of lately. I've been trying to really enhance those protective factors in my life. How about you?
Well, I'm just gonna go. You said something a moment ago, like about prevention, negativity, and positivity, what have you. My personal email, my signature goes prevention. I'm sorry, positivity is the prevention of negativity. That is my tag on my email. So that's something. And when you said it, I'm like, oh, I actually had that's in my email. Again, I say it again for those who are listening. Positivity is the prevention of negativity. I saw your point. You would
Is that the name of the episode?
Let's do it. Let's do it. But as far as I've been speaking to a couple of friends about life in general, about those who have children, those who don't, and I think acknowledging the protective factors that we have. It's kind of hard to see those things, right? And I talk about my children all the time. My daughter just got her master's a few weeks back. My son finishes her freshman year in college. So I'm excited about that. And then someone told me, and I've said this before, I don't take credit for their successes. I mean, I support them in their struggles. But someone told me, like, you put that in place, right? You are the protective factor. You make
Yeah.
sure, like, and I don't think of it like that, because I say it's a choice, but then you gave them those choices. You help them see that those choices, and that's what people have been telling me. And I've been, trying to do my. What I have been accepting that. Let me say, try my best. I haven't been accepting that. And I tell my kids, I'm proud of you, proud of you, proud of you. But guess what? See, they're going to say I'm proud of me. I'm proud of me because of
Yeah.
being given those protective factors, and I take that back to my mom in raising myself and my brother, and her being a force in our lives about education, about being positive, doing the right thing, what have you. And again, things in life are a choice, and we both chose, my brother and chose to follow her lead of supporting people and caring for people, but in different ways, and but it still goes back to that positive nature that my mom put in my life, where I didn't, again, this is again the positivity is prevention of negativity. I didn't know I was poor because of the life that my mom put forward. I didn't know that she was struggling. I didn't know or realize that she was struggling.
Yeah.
Or she,
Same here.
go for it, go for it.
Yeah, no, you're saying that. I'm thinking of my mother when I was a little kid. There was a store, I don't know, a lot of our listeners won't even know what I'm talking about, but there was a store called Alexander's. And
I like that. I like
oh, yeah,
that.
you were still, yeah, you were born in China, but a lot, but last generation won't know, but
Yeah, absolutely.
they had a lot of things that were cheaper. And they weren't cheap things, but they were lower cost.
Right.
And my mother used to, when I was 3 years old even, and I didn't understand what this was. She'd go stand on the line so she could get into Alexander's and buy me a nice winter coat for a lot less money. Because she was very stylish, she was very fashion conscious. I mean, when jeans and t-shirt became, my way of life, she was like, all right, whatever. But she would go to the stores and stand online just so she could get clothes for me. My dad was a fireman. We lived in a housing project in the Bronx, for the first 6 years of my life. And he didn't make a lot of money. And she stayed home and she did what she had to do. She never let me go without anything. But she used to say, beauty is as beauty does. And my grandma used to say that. And I never knew anything else. It was like what you are inside is the most important thing of all. It doesn't matter what you look like outside.
Mm. Absolutely. I mean, those are things that, likewise with my mom. Again, I didn't know, until you go to school. Even when I was in school, I didn't know these things that I didn't have because my mom did my best to provide for myself and my brother. So I didn't know until I got older. The older I got, the more I saw and the more I realized, oh, this is what she's doing, and I remember when I was a teenager, I think I was 16 or 17, and I remember even before that, I remember she was in college while my brother and I were younger, and working. So I remember they had when she went to the school. I forget. I don't remember the name of the school, but I remember it was at Teresa Towers in Harlem, and they had like a daycare for younger kids. So while she was in class, we were there at this daycare while she was taking the classes. And then I didn't conceptualize it. I knew what was going on, but it didn't leave. I was like, hey, a bunch of kids. Yeah.
Of course.
But I mean, looking back at it, like, it was something that, I praise my mom for. Like I said, when I got older in my later teenager years, I remember turning to her and said, and seeing her coming home and she would cook for us. I'm like, bro, like, that's it. So I said, Ma, you don't have to cook anymore. I'll cook. It's because of her I cook. Because not in spite of her, because I wanted to take care of. I wanted to release some of the load off of her shoulders. So I'm out of school earlier. I'm out of high school, and when school's over, I'm out 2, 3 o'clock. Did my homework. She comes home 6, 7. No, dinner's ready. You go lay down. Dinner's ready. I took care of me and my brother. Not in the sense of us having food. But so that was something, that I've learned, and it became a protective factor for me to grow as an individual. Not only as an individual, as a dad also. My kids like, I want to cook too. My son, he made YouTube videos when he learned how to make rice. So he would make these videos and put them on YouTube of him. And he would edit them himself. He's a little kid, too, a little tiny voice. He's over 6 feet now, but it's a whole thing where he would be this little tiny kid, and when you hear this tiny voice, and he's making these videos of him making a pot of rice. He did 2 or 3 videos of cooking with Caden.
I love that.
And he made these videos. I'm like, dude, just keep making these videos. They're great. He was excited. And my daughter, she cooks. She cooks tomorrow. She cooks. She's like, whenever it's like, I want to eat something different. I'm like, then go ahead and do what you got to do. So she'll go to the supermarket, cook for her brother. But and that's the thing that I appreciate the most. And I tell my mother all the time, and I think I can tell her even more how much she's done for myself and my brother that she might not have realized, and I talk about her offline, and I'm like, she's taking care of everyone else. Well, I say that because I want her to take care of herself. Because when I was at that young age, I'm like, no, you go to bed, you lay down, dinner will be ready, dishes will be clean, don't worry about it. And she's up my shoulder now, and I wish I got to figure out a way how to alleviate that from her and other people in her life, But again, she's gonna do what she's gonna do. It's what she wants. That's something I also have to learn.
Yes, that's right.
I have to learn also. So I said, so even now, I'm like, I take a step back. Like, you know what? I usually change the conversation because I know me. I'm like, you're letting them take advantage of you. So like, hey, let's pivot to a different conversation. So if that's what she wants to do, I can't fight it.
That's right. I mean, we can't change other people. They have to want to change. And,
no, absolutely.
Just like being a parent, when you're dealing with your parents and they have needs, they're going to do what they want to do no matter what.
Absolutely.
You take them as far as you can take them, and then you have to trust.
Absolutely.
Trust the process. But when you're talking about being such a positive person in your kids' lives, a lot of studies about resiliency in young kids, or not just young, but kids and teens, will show that even one positive adult for even a small period of time in their lives consistently, like a young person who maybe goes to stay with a relative down south for the summer or for a month, it can change the whole trajectory of their lives. It builds resiliency and social capital. I worked somewhere many years ago in Nashville where we had somebody from Vanderbilt doing a study on our after school care and how that was contributing to it. And I'll never forget that. And then when I think back to all my work with the Spark program and as a SAPist, and I see how all of these kids, just about all of them, not all, but most have, you know, they have positive lives now. It's not that I don't have problems in their lives, but these were kids who were just not headed down a very good path. And just having some positive adults who were there and loved them and cared about them and role modeled, it changed everything. So, again, it can take years, but it's worth the effort.
Yeah, we actually have a guest at the door.
I know. Should we wait? I guess we could invite her in. And I was talking. Oh, what happened?
Let's invite her in.
Oh, okay, let's invite her in, and then we'll let our next guest come in after too. Why don't you let her in?
Yeah. But anyway, you said quite a few things, Ronnie. Hey, I love the glasses. So this is
Okay.
this is for those who can't see, but hear, and for those who can see, that we have our newest team member, Hicks. Kate, you want to introduce yourself and what you do with us? Or
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks for having me on the team as well as the pod. I am Kate Hicks. I actually grew up here in New York, and I come to the team serving as the community development specialist for the Partners of Prevention program, which if you've listened to the pod before, I'm sure you've heard Ronni, Chevar, and Milo talk about, but it is a consortium of coalitions that focus on prevention. So I'm stepping up to help run that program. But I come from living in New York, harm reduction background. I'm just really excited to be a part of the team.
And we are excited to have you here. And the other member of our team, our third person on the NYC PRC team, just came in. So people will already know you, Milo, but why don't you tell them who you are anyway?
Yeah, hey everybody, my name is Milo, and I am a community development specialist at the New York State Prevention Resource Center. Happy to be here today. Happy to be welcoming Kate to the team.
Thank you, Milo.
So before you guys came on, Ronnie and I, we were talking about positivity and protective factors and how and what those things look like in our lives growing up. You could even continue on that conversation, or or again, we do want to know about the work that Kate has plans for Pop. I know I'm talking really weird right now. Hey, what are you?
Has it been that long?
It's been a long time since I've done this. But
Can I interject before we go there? I don't
go for it.
interrupt you, but maybe we should let Kate talk a little bit about what she's done and what brought her here.
Absolutely.
And then we could find out what she's bringing to it and where she's going to take it. Does that make sense?
Sure, yeah. We'll go chronologically. Yeah. So I grew up in New York, and it really was my exposure here at a young age to substances, to substance use, to risk behaviors in general that brings me to this space. I had friends start using substances at a very young age. I used substances at a very young age. I had a cousin who I was very close with, unfortunately pass of a heroin overdose when I was in the 3rd grade. And I think for me, it was really like the ubiquitousness, I don't know if that's a word, of substance use among New York youth. Contrasted with the sort of mysteriousness of, substance use education. I went to one of the most progressive high schools you can find in New York, and I still didn't receive, a health education that was rooted in prevention or harm reduction. So when I got to college and I was thinking about what I wanted to study, I was really interested in psychology because, we were looking at all of these health behaviors. I ended up studying neuroscience, really loved it. I felt like it was so satisfying to really understand these behavioral health issues on a like fundamental level. It was so deeply satisfying to me. But I wanted to get out of the lab and into the world. So I decided to pursue public health. And, I've worked with a lot of really small organizations that are mission driven, that have, pretty minimal resources. And so I think that that's really what sets me up to work in the coalition space. Um, we have so many people who care so much and who often have some capacity to move this work forward, but it's about, figuring out how do we set them up to do that, and how can we take it as far as we can. So I've worked with organizations like the Emotional PPE Project, which serves as an advocacy organization for healthcare workers experiencing mental health burdens. I've worked with Reentry Rocks, which is a really small reentry organization for women who've experienced domestic violence in Brooklyn. I've worked with ULA, which is a midwifery-run maternity care provider, also throughout New York City. And so all of across those spaces, it's just really about working with these sensitive populations that are confronting these behavioral health issues that are so often just not given the attention that other health topics are. And so for me, it's just a really clear space that I feel so, driven to step into. So I come from the harm reduction space. I've worked a lot with the Alliance for Positive Change throughout New York. And I think for me also, I know prevention and harm reduction sometimes are thought of as two different approaches. I think of them as like different points along a continuum of care. So that's really what sets me up to, I think, come into this space. And I'm so excited to take the work that POP is doing and moving it forward, because I think it's a really great idea. I mean, for lack of better words, I think that, unifying smaller voices in this space to become a larger voice is so important. I mean, in this space and others, there's a lot of great work being done in the world, but it's siloed and it limits its impact. And I think that when we all come together, focus on, our shared goals, our shared perspectives, you can really do a lot more. So I'm excited to build POP out, to include more coalitions, to really highlight the coalitions that we do have. So yeah, that's what I've done and what I'm planning to do.
Okay, Milo, I'm going to ask you to chime in here too, because many of you know, some of you don't, that Milo did what Kate is doing for about a year. I guess it was close to a year.
2 years, a little bit over 2 years. Yeah, it was over 2 years.
God, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
But then Milo took over the position that then Nor left, and joined the PRC team as a community development specialist. So, what's your take on all of this, Milo?
I mean, I'm just really excited to see pop enter maybe like a new era, it started a lot. I mean, obviously, as we all know, it started during the pandemic, doing primarily social media. And then I helped move it into, creating an action plan, trying to get into some policy work. And now I think hopefully we're moving into a space where, maybe that action plan can actually go into action, right? A lot of the groundwork has been laid, some progress has been made. And I'm just really excited to see where all of our pop members take it going forward. I think that now is a really good time to try to, move a lot of this work forward. That again, the groundwork has been laid. A lot of that initial outreach has been done. There's a lot of interest in the work. We have some really great core members who are so invested in the work. And I think that it's really just a time to see how all of this that's been kind of building up can keep moving into that new space, maybe. We just have so many dedicated partners who have really like made pop what it is, made it keep going forward, through the past few years, through different changes. And I think that it's going to be a great time to see where things go next. I'm really excited to see the future of pop.
Chevar, you look like you're ruminating.
Oh no, I'm over here doing some producer work in the background, moving cameras around. No, but I think, and I thank you, Ronnie and Milo and Kate for Kate and Milo for sharing. Thank you, Ronnie, for asking those questions. In its different perspectives, I think, with Milo, if you kind of alluded to, uh, can you share with us some of the successes that Kate can look forward to, with pop? Right. What is the go-to pop initiative or go-to pop idea? Again, for anyone who wants to join pop, and in Kate and after Milo shares the past and present, and if you can hop into the present and future, and where do you want to take it? Because that's what Milo said, and she alluded to. Where's it going to go next? And we had some ideas, and things that happened over the past 2 to 3 years, and Milo's definitely a part of those 2 to 3 years. Last 2 to 3 years, although someone else ran it last year, but Milo's still a part of it. Please talk about some of those initiatives or ideas or some that you wish would have got off the ground. And if they don't come, it is okay. Share whatever you can, Milo, and then Kate can take over from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I mentioned our action plan earlier. What's really interesting about like seeing how this work has shifted is seeing how our like prevention landscape has shifted over the past few years. So we wrote our action plan around cannabis prevention when cannabis had just become legalized recreationally in New York. There was a lot of uncertainty and unfamiliarity with like what the laws were. So something that I really started working on. One of the things that I was really proud of with Pop is educating people about the laws around cannabis, explaining to our coalitions and our partners like what is actually legal, what is not legal. A lot of those conversations are what started our action plan around, okay, how can we prevent cannabis misuse among youth? The action plan was actually originally written when there were almost no dispensaries open in New York City. For those unfamiliar, dispensaries are those that are licensed to operate and sell recreational cannabis. So there were none of those dispensaries open yet. And what we instead had was what people have termed like the Wild West of cannabis. So we had a lot of illicit smoke shops selling cannabis without a license, illicitly, unregulated, right? And so that issue was kind of at the forefront of a lot of people's minds and prevention at that time. So that's what started this action plan. So we created an action plan to bring education to communities, to parents, to youth, to explain what the laws are, why prevention around cannabis is important, and what we can do about it as a community. And as the landscape has shifted to more of a regulated market now, and the illicit market there's been some enforcement there. We've still been moving forward with trying to do this education, trying to do outreach to dispensaries is kind of part of the goal, working with law enforcement or with community-based enforcement to try to enforce some of these laws and educate about the laws. One of the really great things that have come out of this was actually our town hall last October, where we brought a dispensary owner, actually, a state senator.
Very informative, by the way.
Yeah, you should all watch it if you have not. It's on our YouTube.
I'll put a link in the description. Go for it. Keep going, Milo.
Our prevention partners, we had a youth from the Bronx there to give his perspective. So it was just a really great conversation around, concerns around cannabis in the community for youth, how we can prevent youth from using, and then all of that aside, like some of my favorite things about working with Pop is, again, working with all of our amazing partners, getting to partner with them on doing events. We're hoping to do more events going forward. I think that's something we've been talking a lot about, is how can we amplify Pop into like the real world, get it from, just meeting on Zoom to doing more things in person, and to really getting out there in the community and having Pop be known in New York City as an entity that is doing this work, that is known for this work, and that is kind of the go-to for cannabis prevention in general, coalition, community-based prevention. So just excited to see how that grows going forward.
Likewise. Kate, what do you have for us? What's the future of life?
It's not a big contrast. I think for me, I think what's so important about this work and coalition's roles in this work is about just empowering the youth, parents, individuals in general with information so that they make the best choices that they can make, and so I think it's, what I see for Pop is really being, and as Milo highlighted, we have a crazy landscape right now. There are policy changes, environmental changes happening at a rapid pace. So just, I see for pop being really a trusted voice and a stable voice in that changing landscape where, you can go to understand sort of just the science of addiction, the science of these substances. You can go to understand the policy changes. What does that mean for me? Understanding the distinction between legal retail dispensaries and illicit convenience stores. And I think that it's so needed because it is really, it's nuanced and it's difficult to understand and it's changing at a really fast pace. So I really see, pop moving its communications campaigns for to be, educational in that way, to really have these materials available for dissemination throughout coalitions. As Milo said, I see events being a big part of this. I mean, just, I think what I think is so special about pop is, right, it's a space that, all these coalitions can come together and work together to move their shared goals forward. So I think without sort of that personal relationship building element, it's hard to do that work. So I really see, in-person events, getting out in the community is a big part of this work. And then lastly, we have a policy subcommittee on pop. So really identifying as these things come up, as legislation comes up, identifying also environmental change strategies. But, there's legislation surrounding is cannabis, education mandatory in schools, things like that. Like, how can we identify the important bills and speak to them and have and use our combined force to make change that wouldn't necessarily be possible just as one single coalition. So I think it's really about being a big voice in terms of, what can you trust right now? What information is evidence-based? And, just being that trusted voice for people.
So I know you started a few days, weeks ago, not 2 more minutes ago, seconds ago, and you said this word several times. Maybe you may even change the name of the episode. You said the voice, right? And you have. And I'm not going to speak for you, and I'm not sure what conversation has been had yet. But what is that? What is the? Do we have an idea what the voice may look like, or is that something still that was still pocketed? And what are your thoughts on what that voice could look like, should look like, might look like? Is there a pivot? Is there a specific, is there a you being the face, or is it a group, or is it, we see the logo? Like, what is that voice? Is it strictly education or science? We said a lot, but is there, or is it all the above? And like, maybe I answered the question for you. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Thank you. I think that, I am obviously an outlet and a spokesperson for pop, but I don't see, it being an individual initiative. I am here to echo the voices that come out of these coalitions. And it's, it's the nothing about us without us principle. Obviously, our work is focused on youth, but these are the people who are in the communities. And, they have their specific populations. And so it's really important to me to not come in and just take over. I see the voice as being a unified, a unified voice. Where are our commonalities across, the coalition of prevention providers and of stakeholders? What can we agree on? I think we can all agree that we don't want youths to be engaging in substance misuse. We don't want illicit shops to be increasing access at the rate that we're seeing. We don't want misinformation. Like, those are the themes that I think you'll see in pop. We do want to be evidence-based. That's really important to me. I come from a science and public health background. We are also definitely going to, be rooted in social justice and human rights principles. So there are some basic non-negotiables there, I think, in terms of, we are not going to echo anything, but I think that it is definitely about elevating the voices of our coalition members and of the communities that they serve, rather than just coming in and projecting about what the problems might be.
Yeah, I love the way you're putting it too, and I'm just seeing. I mean, I have to point out to our listeners and viewers, today's a week that Kate's been on the job.
Yeah, that's what I said a few seconds ago.
Yeah, literally. I mean, so I mean, your vision it sounds very much like the original vision that Pop started with, and it's nice to see it going back to that. I think, like I said, Milo carried that ball for a while, but we kind of lost that vision for a little while. But I feel like we're now really rooted in it again as the laws become more enforced and just the landscape is changing. And one of the things that we've talked about, and you mentioned nothing about us without us. How do you see youth getting involved in pop?
Yes, that was my follow-up, but
I knew this. I read your thought.
Yeah, something I really noticed in my public health education, and it was actually in a specific course. It was the pedagogy of sex education, where you learn how to teach youth about sex education. I think that, there's a gap between these curriculums, these health, the health education that youth are receiving, and their understanding of what's happening to when they go to the doctor, that provider unfortunately doesn't have an hour to spend with them, talking to them about all of the things that are happening in their body. But also health teachers don't really take that on. And so I do think that engaging youth to be informed about these things, not just on a sociological level, but I think a bit on a health-based scientific level, to empower them with that information and that understanding of their bodies is really important to me. So I love when schools have like health educator programs. I think that is such a strength, to be empowering these kids to be voices in their community among their peers, and to also equip them with this information that I think everyone should have. I mean, if you are engaging in substance use at any point, you should probably know what that substance does to your body. That's the very, I think that's the sort of the basic step forward. So, I mean, I think, I think schools are just such an incredible access point for kids, especially as the proliferation of school-based health centers happens across New York. I think that, engaging boys and girls clubs, just so that there are, if coalitions are able to create youth subsets or groups, that is the goal. But if you don't have sort of the member base to do that, then engaging schools, engaging boys and girls clubs, engaging sports teams, there are so many points that we can get youth involved, and it doesn't have to look like a huge commitment. It can just be survey based. It can be, come to this presentation, or it can be, hey, we want you to have a more serious role in this if you're interested. And, we're prepared to equip you, with the training and the education needed to do that in a responsible way. So I see youth as a necessary part of this work. I mean, we're not going to understand the reality of youth substance use without youth. So, it's pivotal, and I think there are a lot of sort of access points where we can engage kids.
Agree with you on that youth part. Well, anyone who's listened to this podcast has heard how I champion youth to I don't know how high. I think they're more intelligent and more brilliant than we allow them to be, or we give them the access of. And I say that because in Ronnie good time, I was in a meeting once. And it was a bunch of grown adults, these old fogies. I was one of them. I was listening. And the adults are talking. And the adults were saying, young people do this. Young people do that. And it was a 13-year-old young lady, middle school aged young lady. And she says that I'm not allowed to speak. And the person who's in charge of the meeting says, yes, this is your meeting also. And she goes, we don't do that. Everything you're saying is wrong. But we do this. Because it was around vaping, and she was like, we don't vape. We'll go buy weed from the guy in the corner because it's cheaper. And it was like, she said, these are worse. I'd rather buy a pair of sneakers to buy a vape product. Those were her words. And I was like, huh. And again, it was something. It was good to hear her voice. You know, we said voices 1,000 times today during this episode. It was really good to hear her voice. And not only that, a lot of times when we're in these spaces, and I apologize for pushing down on adults, like Kate said, bring the youth in. Have the conversation, whether it's a focus group or having someone be a liaison to the young people at the schools, at the CBOs, at the sports teams to get their input. Because we had one person talk about powdered alcohol. I have never heard of powdered alcohol until that day. It was like, I have never in my life ever heard of powdered alcohol. And then come to find out, no, neither than anyone else, but 2 other people. It was an adult who and I appreciate the concern of adults. I'm an adult. We're all adults here, and we do have concerns. We should be concerned. We should want to support. We should want to be a protective factor. We should want to alleviate any risks. But we also, like Kate said, and Milo said in the past, and Ronnie said in the past, get the voices of the young people, get them to the table, right? Engage them. And it's sincerely important. And when I'm listening to you talk, kid, I'm like smiling, probably, and like, yes. Like Ronnie said, these are the things that we talked about. I'm like, you know, how many times I've said, go talk to the sports teams. The coaches will let you talk to the kids. The coaches don't want the kids to get in trouble. Because the kids that get in trouble, they can't play sports, right? Go talk to the dance squads. Go talk to the theater. They want the kids there. And if the kids can't be there, there's no program. There's no them. So again, like Kate said, I echo what Kate said. I'm pretty sure Milo echoes. I'm pretty sure Ronnie echoes what Kate said. Go meet the youth where they are. And they are everywhere. and summer's coming, so they're even everywhere.
And I mean, it's just, and what are we seeing people focus on? The 100 deadliest days.
Yes.
And my whole take on this is, okay, we know that exists. How about if we flip the switch and look at what are the positive ways that young people spend their time during the summer, so that we don't have to experience those 100 deadliest days. We tend as a society to look at, you know, the negative piece of it or the consequence. Let's flip it and look at building those protective factors, building those assets, like those 40 developmental assets. You know, that's always been my experience, that when you provide young people with assets, with protective factors, you see growth. Risk factors don't really change that much. And risk factors are a lot of times mitigated by societal changes, by policies and laws. But what can you do with a protective factor? Everyone can enhance that. The things we can't do with a risk factor. So I think it's really important to, you know, keep that perspective in mind. And Riley, we haven't given you much of a chance to talk. So do you want to chime in with anything?
No, I mean, honestly, I've actually been thinking as well about how we can flip that 100 deadliest days, specifically for like our newsletter. I've been thinking about, you know, how can we make it instead, you know, 100 days of safe and fun activities for youth? How can it instead be 100 days of empowering youth to, you know, engage in healthier behaviors, engage in like community building behaviors, right? Like I agree with you, Ronnie, that often we try to maybe, I think sometimes we see in prevention some like maybe fear mongering, thinking about, you know, messages that we may have heard as youth about prevention. And instead, I think it's important for us to figure out, how can we empower youth? How can we tell youth that they do have the ability to make those changes in their life? And there are also there are so many resources that we as adults, as coalitions, as community-based organizations can bring to our youth, their communities, to empower them to make those better choices, can bring those, you know, positive alternatives to them, right? I think that is so important. It is something that we really need to bring more of into prevention. What I love about this work is how many of our coalitions are doing that. That is so much of their mission, right? To bring those opportunities. So yes, that's what everybody's saying.
Can I jump in and support you, Marlo? Yes. In addition to that, 100 days of positive enforcement, can we pivot it to 100 ways so it's around this year round? And I say that because this was what Ronnie was saying, is 100 days is we talk about the summer, right? But I think we should never. And when I first started, Ronnie will tell you, I said the worst time of the year for a teenager is the summer, because if we don't have anything to do, well, I'm not a teenager anymore. When I was a teenager, if I had nothing to do, I'm in trouble, and most of us are in trouble. So anyone I've ever speaking to, even if you're a grade A student to whatever, you got in some trouble. Like you, whether it's breaking the reeds in all the music class, don't do that. But we've done something. But I think looking at 100 ways of empowerment for youth, and that can be year round. I mean, especially during the summer, summer. So 100 ways of empowerment for youth, I think would be great. And if I can support in that, me, I'm youth first. I'm always going to be you first. Please let me know. I know the newsletter is going to come out soon, so I apologize, Milo. If we'd have thought about this a while ago, I would have jumped over that.
We still, it's beyond the newsletter. Like, I think it's more about, a theme for our summer, for our going forward, right, in this work. It's more than just like a theme for a newsletter. It's also about, how we conceptualize, how we bring this concept to our coalitions.
Absolutely. 100 ways of empowerment. I like that. Somebody write that down.
100 days of empowerment. How about that? What ways?
I said 100 ways, yeah.
You want to use it through the year. Yeah.
So somebody write that down. I think Kate's writing it down.
And you can always play back the recording. Well, we've heard so much today, and I think, we're going to keep talking about this, and we're going to be revisiting, because we'd like to see, where we're at in a couple of months, and just keep people updated, and people may be interested in being a part of POP. It isn't just for coalitions. I mean, we're all part of prevention. So, if we can all join the prevention force, it really will help change occur a lot more forcefully, and it'll create longevity in that change. But now this is where we get to ask a fun question. And Chevar usually comes up with one. It could be the one we always used, or some of the others
new.
have.
So I can ask Kate this one, and I'll pivot for Milo, because Milo's been around. But Kate, think back to when you were 7, right? What was your 7-year-old self say? Well, no. What did you want to be when you were 7 years old? Is it comparative to now, or is it something different? Like, for instance, I want to be a firefighter and NASCAR driver. Ask me why. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's not at all related to what I do now. I didn't know that public health was a field until I got to college. I wanted to be a musician. I was always writing songs and performing for my parents and my parents' friends, and making people do it with me. I did take classes in about every instrument you could
Did you break the reeds? No, right?
No. I did piano for a while. Unfortunately, I didn't keep up with any of it. But that's what I saw for myself at the time.
I just learned something about. I want to learn a lot of movies, but I did not. Ronnie's a musician, and I didn't know.
And I wanted to be since I was 3 or 4. Yeah, and I did become that. But
oh wow, okay, I didn't.
cool.
So Milo, this question is gonna be totally different from you. So if you could time travel anywhere, and Milo, I want you to play along too. Just think about this. If you could time travel,
Okay, I'll play.
where in time, and you could be as abstract as you want. Where in time would you travel? It's a tough question. While you mull it over, I'll do my
I'm trying to
spiel.
think. This is a hard one. No, I'm just trying to think, because part of me says I want to go to the future, but the future is always scary, right? So I want to go to the future if it's like cool and sci-fi, and we're like living underwater and like little like hubs and stuff. That would be cool, but obviously you can't predict the future. So that's like part of me.
Listen, be abstract. That is your future. If that is your future, that is your future.
I am curious, like 1,000, 2,000 years from now, what would that look like, right? Like, are we on Mars? Like, what's going on? Like, I'm a little bit curious about that, but I also am curious about the past. So I'm like, give me a minute to formulate a real answer, because I'm.
So someone said to me, I was in a meeting and they brought this up as an iceberg, and I was like, well, kind of tough for a person like me to go anywhere in the past, but rather go to the future. But what someone did say, which I thought was really interesting, which I kind of agree with, was going back and speaking to like my grandparents and learning their story, and getting to know, or rather my great grandparents, and getting to know their story and what they envision for themselves. Because those stories are lost. Like I would love to get to know those stories and get to be able to share those stories with my great grandchildren, whatever the case may be. It's like, those stories are no longer here, and that I didn't think about that. I was like, wow, oh my God.
No, I didn't either. When you said that, it got more political. Yeah, definitely the part, maybe, spending more time with my mom and talking about stuff. But the thing that came to mind for me, I love time travel. I am a time travel freak. All of my favorite shows, books are time travel. I mean, and I'm thinking back to one of my favorite books, Time and Again by Jack Finney, which is about time travel. And there's a point in the book where the protagonist goes back in time to the moment that the villain's parents met and asks one of them for a light so that they never meet. So I'm not going to name any names. I'm just going to say if I could think of some of those people or people who are, negative for society, I would want to go visit their parents met and just interrupt them for a second so their paths never cross. So that's a way I'd like to utilize it. I'll leave it at that.
There's I have some ideas. Milo, you ready?
I mean, all of you guys now, I'm like, wow, mine was.
No,
Yours is great. Yours is great. Yours is great. Now I'm like, I should have gotten deeper with it. I'm just thinking about underwater.
Well, hold on. Mine, when I answered the question, mine was going back to high school because I had fun. It was the easiest part of my life. I know it was stressful. I'm not gonna say it was stressful, but I didn't have to pay bills. The only thing is play basketball, hang out with my friends, date girls. That was it. That was just my life.
I feel that too. I feel like that was a good time too. Like high school was a good time.
Don't get at you don't have to have the creative answer. Because look, I'd love to go back to the guitar teacher when I was 7 or 8 and tell my mother I had no talent and play. Say, by the way, I spent 30 years as a professional musician. Oh, see ya. But so it could be anything.
I'm sorry for the complex question. I'm so sorry.
No, I'm gonna stick with my answer. I want to go to the future. I'm gonna stick with my answer. I'm gonna own it. I do want to go to the future. I want to know. I've always as a child been so curious about what will the future look like. I think every generation has this idea of oh, there will be flying cars, etc. I want to know, and I'm curious.
I would love to go to the future. Also, 2000 is the future.
That's why I'm I know maybe it's a risk what's going to be happening, but I'm curious. I'm curious. And maybe it will be fun. Maybe there will be flying cars and we'll be on Venus or something. I don't know. I'm hopeful.
Yeah. I would love to go to this dystopian future with pollution and I'm playing.
Anyway. I'm I know it's not a guarantee. I'd love for it to be cool.
A couple of 100 years into the future, like at the the Handmaid's Tale, we found out about them hundreds of years later. So anyway, this could get very, very complex.
We could do a separate episode of podcasting. That's not this. We could talk about this. But thank you guys for both joining. Thank you. Welcome, Kate, to the team. I know it's been a few seconds, few minutes, few days, a week to joining the team. Welcome back, Milo, to the podcast. We haven't been here in a while. We miss you dearly. Hopefully you can continue to be a guest or, if you want, it's up to you.
Well, when we have guests that interest you, come on and join us. The door's always open.
I'm always down. Chevar, I sit a foot from you, so I'm always within reach, literally.
Got it. Next one. We'll talk. We'll talk. I want to lean on you because Ronnie shared an idea with me earlier this morning, but we can talk offline because I don't want to. Depending on when this episode comes out.
Yeah, totally.
All right, you guys. Well, we're going to wrap up the show. Thanks for coming. I'm really excited that people get to see it, hear the ideas, and will generate a lot of excitement. So we're going to hang on. We'll see you in the very near future. We don't have time travel. And we enjoyed spending this time with you. So we'll see you later.
Thanks for having me.
Yes.
Joining us.
Hey, take care.
Okay. Well, we'll let them hop off, and now it's just us.
That was cool. That was
really fun.
It was fun. My question, I didn't think it was going to be that crazy, but
what a great question. Maybe we need to. This would be a good icebreaker. I don't want people to know we're thinking. Then watch this and they'll have an answer. Yeah. We're not going to tell you. We're just going to spring it on you people. We're not going to tell you when.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Who's watching? Hope you guys enjoy this. We'll be back more frequently, hopefully.
Yeah, we said that before, haven't we?
I know.
The work. It's the work.
It's the work.
It's too valuable. We got to do it.
It's the work. But here, this is the solution. You know what happens? Nothing changes if we change nothing.
See you next time. Take care.